formula. Like mind plus thought plus consciousness equals reality. I'm referring to the principles here. So, and in the first meeting, I spoke about you thought and how it wasn't a principle-based idea. That doesn't mean it's wrong, but if we're looking in principles, we must discount the idea of you thought creating your reality. We're just going to stick with the principles formula here.
Oh, Brett, consciousness is not, is misspelled.
Oh, blimey.
And it's got one S. Yeah, there you go.
I did a disservice to the principles there.
Yes.
Okay. So now this formula, I think, has a lot of implication if we are willing to dive into it to see what it means. Okay. So we have mind, thought, and consciousness. The first aspect I want to talk about is what happens. What happens if I do this? Anybody? What happens when I remove mind? I don't think anybody's got their hands raised yet.
No reality.
No reality. That's what happens. So straight away we can see if we are to have a reality, we need the principle of mind. I'm going to put mind back in here. And reality again. Okay, so we've already established that the principle of mind is an essential element for reality. Let's keep going. What happens if I remove consciousness? Anybody?
I see Brett, Omar has said no experience.
No experience. Okay. So reality is just one word to say. We could also say feeling, experience, state of mind, all kinds of things. We'll have more on stuff, right? So no experience, it's also like saying there's still no reality. So we can take this off. So you can have mind and thought, but without consciousness, there would be nothing. Not bad, nothing. Okay? So in order for us to have a reality, we must have consciousness. I got the spelling right this time. Okay, and lastly, I think you know what I'm going to do next, but I think this is also the biggest implication of all. If I take away the principle of thought, what happens? There's no reality. So if you think about in this very moment, you have got a reality in this very moment. You're looking at a screen of me presenting on the screen. That's your reality in this moment. And in this moment, thought is included, even though whether you are aware of it or not, thought has to be included for you to have a reality. Hey, Hank, he's raised his hand. Hank, you're still muted.
Ah, yeah. I just wanted to check something. If you say reality, can you replace that by time, space, and matter as well? So can you say without either mind or thought or consciousness, there is no time, space, and matter? Or is that taking it too far or not far enough? And I'm just trying to get a sense for it. Maybe it doesn't matter.
That's a really deep question, Hank. Okay. Are you talking about psychological time, space, and matter or physical time, space, and matter?
All of it.
All
I
of
mean, on a psychological level, it makes sense, right? There is no reality without consciousness, period. Personal level. But I was just trying to get a sense for the scope of the principles, which is never a good idea. But I just wanted to check, like, hey, if we're talking about the principles, how do they relate to reality, and what do we mean by reality? And I don't want to be semantical about it. I just wanted to give it just a little check, like, hey, what are we trying to say? And maybe this doesn't need an answer right now.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That's an aspect that I will go into a little bit later today. Okay, so if we hold on to that question for now, that'd be great. One of the helpful aspects of learning about the principles is the idea of whether something is consistent to the principles or contradicts the principles. Okay, because it's a way of making it more clear of this way or this way. So for example, let's say the past equals reality. And we see that there's reality over here and there's reality here. Right? But what creates the reality is two very different things we can believe to be true. Right? So if this is true, right, then you're basically saying this cannot be true. If this is true, then you're saying this can't be true. So these two formulas contradict the other. And the thing about contradiction is that you can't have both of them being true at the same time. Okay. So what do you think? I mean, what is true? Is this true or is this true? You see where I'm going with this? I'm just putting a couple of arguments in front of you and see what you think.
I wouldn't say the past is reality. It might be our reality, but it's our made-up version.
Joanne's making a good point here. So So what's happening is, I'm just going to leave this top formula there now because that's the reference. I want to keep the reference. I'm going to put something up below it so that we can keep changing it and play around with it. One of the, I'll just go back one moment. I had a conversation with a friend and colleague some years ago, and she said something that really touched my heart. It's my friend and colleague, Bessie Friedman, and she said, "We're just putting things back where they belong in the first place." That's a quote that's very dear to me. Okay, so to speak to what Joanne is saying now, that the past is the reality. Right? But what we can now do, that instead of putting the past here that creates the reality, we can now replace reality. We're not really replacing it, we're just giving it another name and call it the past. Right? So we're putting the past back where it belonged in the first place. Mind plus thought plus consciousness created your past in this moment. Another thing we're doing is we're also putting, if we look at this one, there's no principles in there. But now we're putting mind, thought, and consciousness back where it belonged in the first place, which is here. Mind, thought, and consciousness. Then create the past in a moment. The implication is that suddenly you realize that the past has no power to create your reality. It's still the principles that created the past in the moment. Which Joanne really nodding her head now.
I see it now. Yes.
So this is what it means to learn more about this formula. Play around with it. So we've had the past. So let's take away the past. What else do we think creates our reality in the moment? Anybody?
Other people?
Big one, that one. Other people create your reality. Or is it this?
Yeah.
Two arguments, both cannot be true at the same time.
Right.
Other people, I mean, it's a wild idea to think other people are created through these principles. It's a wild idea, but play around with it. It will do the world of good, as it did for me. Hey, just briefly, we've done two examples so far, the past and other people. Is there anything more you want to?
Well, there's just something that happens with something is removed, some error is removed, some misunderstanding, something that maybe you've presumed or just was going on without noticing that the principles were involved, that you abdicated power to, or you abdicated existence to, without the principles, there's going to be a mistake in your downstream logic, your downstream reality. And you can see it, you're demonstrated very clearly, but feel the reverberation of that in your own psychology, and you will get a multi-layered benefits.
Is this making sense to
Yes.
you so far? Lots of head nodding. Okay. We'll keep playing with it just to really highlight just how bad this can go. Okay. Other people. What about circumstances? Does your circumstance determine your reality, or is it the principle that gives you a reality called circumstances? Sometimes I wonder if we're scaring people that we're going very, very deep here. Okay. Any more ideas that we can put in place of circumstances?
What about beliefs? Yeah.
Do you believe create your reality, or is it the principle that gives you your beliefs?
Yeah.
I think this is what is meant by when Steve said we're going beyond beliefs.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with beliefs. We're not doing something about the belief. We're saying that there is an order before the belief is happening in our moment-to-moment life.
Right, I have a question. What about thinking?
Does this make any sense to you, David?
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. Yeah.
Just to underline another point about thinking, we're not saying thinking is a negative. We are saying that it is not a principle. But again, we're putting things back in the right places. It looks like thinking can give us the reality, which in some ways does, but you can't have thinking without the principles in the first place. That's what we're saying here. The foundation we're making here, or trying to bring to your attention, are these three principles. Thinking is the compound of these three elements. So thinking is after the fact. Thinking is in the form created by the formless. Leslie, you've got your hand raised.
Hi. What about the body, like our physical form? What would you say about that?
So, Leslie, what can you derive from this?
Yeah.
I find this really challenging. Because it seems like the body is in the world of form and you could put it in with circumstance or something like that, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really understand how they can create, the principles can create the body, the physical body. I don't know.
Okay, okay. Would you know that you have a body without the principles?
Hmm. No. No, you wouldn't have consciousness to even know you're alive. Right.
The another good thing about this is realizing that it's principles that make you aware that you have a body. It takes away the idea that the body can give you ideas about what this means. Like, so all the labels that are attached to a body, like I don't look good, or I'm overweight, or I'm pretty, or not so pretty, that kind of thing, just doesn't quite add up so much anymore. So your identity is not derived from the body. The principles make you aware that you have a body. Good one, though. The body, good one.
How about the brain?
The brain. Since he brought that up, he can talk about that one.
Well, I just remember one of the first things that I remember reading in Second Chance was this Sid's first book. He said, mind is not brain. And I thought, mind is not brain. It challenged, he said, and it's not a thought, and it's not a thing. I thought, wow, what are we talking about here? I thought mind was my science. I don't even know what my science is if it's not a thing or a thought or physical. What is mind? And so and he said it's a psychic force that acts as a catalyst that turns your thought, whether conscious or unconscious, into the reality that you now see. I thought, oh my. I have really had to chew that one over for a long time. It was one of the first things that rocked my boat. But this is the same thing. It rocks your boat. And but in the rocking, you get a new a new experience, or a new you get a redefinition. The old definitions fall apart.
Another thing I like about this is staying with keep saying. We have brain over there and mind here. So we now have a clear separation, but we now have also established the true relationship. Mind or unconsciousness gives you a psychological reality that's called brain. So we're not actually talking about the brain. So, I mean, how many things do we do to the brain hoping it would improve that? Like, oh, if I had the medication or nutrient or supplement, that kind of thing, hoping it would do something to the brain, then I will be able to see better. But that is derived from this formula, brain equals reality, and not from this. So we now have a multi-million-dollar industry of what can we do about the brain? Okay, what else? I'm going to put a couple more. mental health, including all those people who get diagnoses from psychologists and psychiatrists. They live in those diagnoses as if those diagnoses created their reality. And now, with this formula, there's another way of looking at it. Is it possible that mind through unconsciousness created those diagnoses? That's a different order altogether.
Can I ask a question, Brett?
Please do, Cam.
Yeah. I got screwed up at the very beginning when you started with this equation. I don't know what my brain was doing, but it was sort of equating it to logic and mathematics. And I was reading the first two as if they were true. And then I just kind of realized about 3 subjects into it that what you're saying is it's a question within those square parentheses. It's like, okay, we're gonna question this hypothesis, as opposed to here's 2 factual statements. What is the logical outcome of that? So that seems to have gone away. So I just thought I'd bring it up in case somebody else had the same kind of weird thought about it. So thanks.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Cam.
Brett, go ahead and add physical health as well as mental health.
Okay.
Yes, because all of our physiological processes come from mind, thought, and consciousness. It's how our body works.
This is where I have a little bit of difficulty trying to explain it now. What we're dealing with here is purely psychological. Right? When I'm not saying that there isn't the physical, there is the physical, but we cannot acknowledge the physical without the psychological in the first place. And we cannot acknowledge the psychological without the spiritual or the principles in the first place. Right? So I want to be careful in that the physical body is made up, or it is part of the whole. So I'm not quite sure how to describe that. Hey, could you get me out of a hole here?
I'm sorry, my hearing's gone. I can't seem to really. I can see your mouth moving. Don't. Well,
Okay, Channa Studley's work with pain. Okay, it's psychological, but it's also physical, and it's based on mind, thought, and consciousness. So the mind, thought, and consciousness, when we're actually in tune and connected and aware, affects our physical body as well as psychological. To me, that's my thoughts, but it's probably just thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah. Mind is, I think, is a lot bigger than we take we can understand it, right? So, so we've got brain, right? So we have a psychological reality, and then we see a brain, right? But there is a brain. So instead of saying mind is brain, the way I see it, and this is a personal opinion, not principled opinion, is that brain is included in mind. The body is included in mind. The planet is included in mind. The universe is included in mind. Right? So there's a lot of knowledge within mind that will help you to realize, oh, what's going on. So when you have a physiological process, right, how do you know you have a feeling as a result of it? So I'm not talking just about pain. It could be hunger, or you get a sense that your bladder is full. You've got a feeling. So how did you make that feeling? You didn't think it to make that feeling. It's just a natural process. Right? So there's something going on that makes you aware of those natural processes so that you can be aware of it and know what to do. So when it comes to pain, I think there are two ways of looking at it. Is that there's pain, and then there's pain determining your reality. So I could now put in here pain equals reality, or the principle equal to pain. And this, where this gets a little bit interesting is, if we look at these three principles, right, another way of saying it is wisdom. Right? So when you say this, you will have wisdom about the pain. Wisdom informing you about the pain. With this formula, there's no principle, therefore there's no wisdom. Therefore, it looks like the pain is now the source of your experience, the source of reality. So I'm trying to keep it as psychological as much as I can, and let the people who know something about the physical talk about that. I'm no expert on the physical. Okay, so I'm sorry if I'm not really helping out much here.
Right, could I say one thing? Because I think fundamentally, even though it goes deeper than this, you're focusing on these three principles creating experience. And so when you're saying pain, you're talking about the experience of pain, or the experience of the body, or the experience of the brain even. Now I know you're going deeper beyond that, but I think to me that's like the absolute foundation, because so often we think of experience, reality, feeling as coming from pain, coming from the brain, coming from the body. And so our experience of any of that is created by these three principles.
To give you a personal example of it.
What comes to mind for me is, sorry what comes to mind for me is what I saw, because I was a bit confused in the beginning when you wrote that, is the neutrality behind it, the impersonality behind that. So, you wrote now deaf, and, mind, thought, and consciousness equals deafness, but it's neutral. It's the neutrality behind that. And if what comes to mind for me is, if you, for example, would write your other equation with mind, personal thought, or new thought, what you wrote, new thought plus consciousness would give an experience of deafness, however you would see it, as a negative thing, for example.
Yes.
So that was helpful for me to see. So
So for me personally, I've been living in the world of me being deaf created my reality, and I have lots of thoughts burst on it. Deaf, what do I do about it? People are treating me this way. I can't do this because I'm deaf, etc., etc. All the molecules of thought. Right? And then I came across the 3 principles. It was several years after I first came across it. The idea of mind and consciousness equals depth. Right? And that was the point where I realized, oh, that my thinking here about being deaf, that gave me the reality. But now I'm like, oh, wait a minute. The principles is giving me the experience of being deaf, an experience of being deaf. Today, I am still just as deaf as I was before I came across the principles. That hasn't changed at all. But my experience is completely different now. I no longer live in this formula, and now I'm living in this formula here, mind plus thought and good consciousness. And there's wisdom in it. And this wisdom is what allows me to, oh, now I can go and see this person. I'm now no longer being captive by what other people might think if I were to talk with them. So now I can go and meet them and have a nice conversation. This is where the principles come in. It opened up possibilities that this cannot open up. It shut it down. This one opened it up. So my hearing is still no different. But my experience of my hearing, night and day difference. So that's the direction we're going here. So, I mean, I could talk to you about all the ideas what I could do to my hearing, but that's not the direction we're going here. We're going in the direction of the principles. So, in a way, we're not rejecting or ignoring or dismissing the physical aspect of it, but we're looking at it psychologically, how we get to have an experience of anything. Hey.
Amen.
Okay. Okay, so last thing. I think this might be a nice segue for the piece that I was just on. Time, space, and matter equals reality. If we remember what I said about being deaf, right? I'm talking about the experience. I'm not talking about the thing itself. So mind plus thought plus consciousness gives you the reality that has time, space, and matter in it. Without the, sorry, someone started speaking.
Say that again, Brett.
Okay, say that again. Okay. Mind plus thought plus consciousness gives you a reality that has time, space, and matter in that reality. You cannot have time, space, and matter without these principles. Now, am I talking about time, space, and matter in and of itself? No, I'm not. I'm talking about our experience of time, space, and matter.
whether it's
Good news about this is that it opened up a whole world of possibilities. Because when you have time-based matter giving you the reality, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to change time itself. Nobody's invented a time machine yet. It's difficult to change space. I don't know anybody who can create an entire universe with stars, planets, and galaxies. And matter, I don't have the ability to create the periodic table of elements. They're very difficult to change. But when you have mind-on consciousness that's giving you the experience, suddenly the experience itself of time-space and matter is no longer fixed. It's no longer stepped. You don't need to get a chisel and hammer it away anymore, because it's now much more dynamic, it's much more fluid. So now you have other potential ways of looking at it, and then you light. Wisdom will show you something. Okay, Pete. It is, well, just very briefly, so we've got this formula that if you're able to play around with it, so we have what seems to be true without the principle, and we have this idea of here's the principle, and anything inborn is the result of these principles. We are putting things back where they belong in the first place. We're putting what seems like the factor in our reality over here, and we're putting the three principles here. And now we've got the relationship that will help us more because wisdom is now included.